Hello and welcome to the Connection webinar series. This is the first track of week 2, and today we are joined by David Arnault from Bobst, Enrico Gilloni from EDF Europe. We've got Giovanni Bettini from Mitsubishi Heavy Industries Europe, Paul Aliprandro from Sun Automation, and Rob Garvey from TCY. So I'd like to welcome all of the gentlemen here. Today we are looking at a session entitled, What is the Future for High-Speed Case Making? So David, I'd like to come to you first, if I may. The whole concept that box makers are facing at the moment in terms of reducing order lengths and issues with fast turnaround jobs. What is the future for high-speed case making? Are we seeing a massive change now in how box plants are producing their packaging?
Well, this is an interesting question then. But actually, when we look at the market and the trend, we have made a recent study on some machines, and we still see that even for Europe or USA, the average size is still quite long, with 30 to 15,000 feeds per job. So even if the trend is to reduce it, the numbers are still high, okay, which still makes sense to get a high-speed case maker for that purpose. We see also that with the COVID crisis we are living today, the e-commerce is pushing a lot, and we know that e-commerce brings a lot of standard boxes in very high volumes. So this is quite a balance that let us think that the high-speed case maker have a great future still today. And globally, the market of our customers, the converters, is a high volume market with very low margin on a single box. So even for short orders, the speed to produce the box will be a key in the profitability of the productions. So of course, in that case, for shorter runs, the setup time will be more and more important. But still, the speed, we cannot afford a slow speed even for this kind of simple jobs.
And David, let's look at color numbers now. So in terms of when you're looking at case making as an industry sector, has there been a significant move from sort of single to 2 colors and then more now 3 and 4 color? I mean, are you seeing significant changes in color?
Yes, we see change in the will of our customers to switch from offline processes to inline processes. Okay, and this is pushing the number of colors we are printing on the machine. Still today, 80% of the jobs are 2 or less colors. So we see the trend, but on a market share that is only 20% of the production. So we see that, of course, we live it, and it's an important way for the converters to increase the profitability again. But still, it's a small part of the market.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and Giovanni, I'd like to come to you now, please. Giovanni from MHI. Giovanni, when we're looking at high-speed production, I think sometimes a lot of people overlook possibly the importance of folding accuracy. Tell us a little bit about why folding accuracy is so important in the inline process.
Yes, folding accuracy is very important. I also would like to add, to agree with what David just said, about the importance of high-speed case makers, even if the number of boxes is reducing per order. Because also now we see that, as David said, that the e-commerce, you still have a very long order, so you need high-speed machines. But also you have many customers that have a very, very short orders. You mentioned 10, 15,000, but also you have 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. And in case of these customers, basically 50% of the time is a setup and 50% is a real production. So in this 50% with real production, you need to produce at high speeds. Otherwise, you lose productivity. So I fully agree with what David just said. Regarding folding accuracy, yes, we see that the trend of the importance of increasing of folding accuracy becomes more and more important already for the last few years. We have seen customers that demand folding accuracy as one of the key factors of buying a machine or deciding it, because then their customers, they have these auto-erecting machines and they cannot afford to have not a good folding accuracy. Of course, we cannot say perfect folding accuracy. Nothing is perfect, but we can get too close to perfection as much as possible. And this will help very much our customers to reduce waste and to get this big market.
And Enrico, I'd like to come to you briefly, if I may, and I am going to then come back to Giovanni, because I think, Enrico, when we start looking at the high volume, high speed case makers, the application of peripheral units, pre-feeders, bundlers, etc., and strapping systems are very, very important. How do you advise your customers, to start examining the project when they're looking to put in a high-speed case maker?
Well, then, of course, pre-feeder and palletizer and strapper are very, very important to reach a high productivity in a line for many factors. First of all, because, of course, if you don't have operator exhausted, they will be able to work better and faster during the order change. Secondly, we know factories are working with less and less people. In Europe especially, it's difficult to find people willing to work in a corrugated factory. So as less people you have in a line, and especially now with the COVID crisis, you keep distances. With pre-feeder and palletizer, you have people working 20, 30 meters away from the other. But another very important factor is the logistics, because in cases without the peripheral, you see machines stopping because of lack of board incoming, or because they don't have the right pallet to palletize, and all these kind of problems. So the pre-feeder makes sure the board is continuously feeding and pushing the machine, and the palletizer plus the logistic is making sure all what you produce in high speed will be taken away and is not creating a bottleneck to the exit of the line. And we talk about lines, as you previously pointed out, is very, very important that in designing such a process, you see everything as a line. So pre-feeder, case maker, bundler, palletizer. This could become a problem if you don't design it that way. It could be that you create a much longer setup time. Could be then to save money, you put a very poor strapping line or a very poor pre-feeder, and then you harm all the money invested in buying a super case maker, a super fast case maker, because the peripheral around and the logistic around are not good enough. Another very important point, what I see in the projects we touch, a critical factor is the focus on training the staff, training the people. So many times the customer wants to buy a very fast machine, a very fast pre-feeder, very fast case maker and whatsoever. And then when you go on the floor after 1 year, they still doesn't know very well how to use it. And it is very, very critical that the lean manufacturing and all the small details in killing all the dead time and all the time a guy can lose working in such a line is eliminated and everything flows smoothly. So yes, the peripheral can be the solution, but in some cases might become also the problem.
David, yes, please. You look like you want to add something there, David.
Touched a very important point regarding the peripherals. And here for me, the key word is automation. Because if you go for a full line, and this is really the concept we need to push to increase the performance of the converters, the automation transforms operator time in machine time. And if it becomes a machine time, you know what time you will need. If it's operator time, you are dependent from skills of the people. This is just your remark, Enrico. And once you make it as a machine time, you ensure the performance of the line. And if you look at the most performing machine today, some machines are able to manage 2 orders in the line. That means the automation is pushed so far that you have not finished the first order, then the machine starts to feed the second order. And this is really a way pushing the automation and getting the best from a full line concept. And I think this is really a key for the future of our industry.
Mm-hmm. We're going to carry on this thread in a second in terms of, automation and training and mindsets. But I'd like to come to Paul quickly here. Paul, I would like to ask you, particularly in the North American market, when you're working with clients to ascertain what is the best solution for them, whether it's open and close, whether it's fixed architecture, how do you work with your customers to help them work out what's the right machine for them?
That is important, and most of the machines out there right now are fixed frame. They're open close machines. They are the workhorses of the industry. But as my colleagues here on this panel, all the newer machines that we're placing are a set while run. And what we talk about with the customer is not only their product mix, but the proper size machine and what they need, but how many orders are they looking at per shift or per day? When you get into a open close machine, you're going to have downtime and planned downtime that you want to avoid. There's a lot of machines right now, all my colleagues here, that their machines can set up in 2 minutes or 3 minutes. If you're running around 10 setups a shift, you might want to consider a set while run machine. Again, as Giovanni was saying, speed is important. And I'd like to go back to what Enrico said. The full line is also important. It's not only the machine itself, the press itself, but the pre-feeder, the palletizer, the conveyor. Some investments can be millions and millions of dollars or pounds and or euros. And it gets into what is going to be your trouble spot along the way. And most of the time, it's not the press. I like to get back to one thing about the bundler. The bundler is probably the least expensive product or module on that line. And yet probably, although reliability is much better than it used to be in the past, probably the one that gives us the most issues. But so consider maybe a double bundle, things like that. But we always go back to set while run or open close is how much time are you going to be down for the next order? And that's what we talk about with our customers.
Mm-hmm. Now, I just want to check on the line. Have we still got Rob with us? Rob, can you hear us on your phone connection?
Hi, Dan. I can. I'm apologies for the loss of video, but I can hear you all loud and clear, yes.
Oh, fantastic, Rob. Well, listen, it's great having you with us. Rob, we were just starting a little bit of a conversation thread here on how you work with your customers to actually look at the choice of how they specify the machine. And you were telling me last night about a particular conversation that you were having with one of your customers just recently. So how do you go about sitting down with those customers to help them make sure that machine is right for them, whether it's a mini line, whether it's a standard, whether it's fixed architecture or open closed?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we tend to start with trying to understand actual work mix. What is the market that customers are looking at? Be it, are they looking to expand into it, or are they at a point where whatever they are currently doing is at maximum capacity and they need to take the next step? So the first thing that customers tend to do with us is look at their product mix and where are the pinch points within that mix. And then we sort of start to hone in on would the complexity of what they're trying to produce suit open and close architecture or fixed line architecture? Because I think, as my colleagues have already said, set while run fixed type machinery is hyper fast, but it's important to look at the entire line. So if you have a very, very quick set machine, it is critical that you have the front end sorted and the back end sorted to match the speed of that machine also. But I would say that that's more typical for simpler box types, maybe 1 or 2 color work. If you are into more complicated box types, let's say, where you need to spend a little bit more time setting up the slotter or involving the die cutter a little bit more regularly, then you're probably losing the advantage of the fixed type because of the time spent setting up those other elements, which you could do on the open close. So we tend to find that open close architecture gives the customers a little bit more ability to go after a more varied product mix, let's say. Be it short run or long run, it's more about the box type. And then if they are steering towards a more typical stock box type of product mix, then yeah, fixed type is a fantastic solution for that.
Fantastic. Well, Rob, thanks for persevering and connecting with us. I'm going to come back to David because I think he wants to add a little bit here. But David, I'd also like to ask some questions of you about graphics. So do you want to add something to what Rob was saying then?
Yes. Regarding the differences between the fixed frame and the open and closed machine, I personally think that we are able to produce exactly the same boxes with both types of machines. The point is the performance, how you want to be good in the setups. Of course, this has been covered with the discussion, but also in terms of speed. If you think about graphics, and I make the links with the next topic, if you have a fixed frame machine, you will be able to put bigger dryers, for example, than an open and closed machine. And in that case, of course, with bigger dryers, you have bigger power and you can run faster. So it's really a question also of user friendliness to operate the machine. Open and closed is not so easy. So it's really a question of performance. But of course, this has a price. And if you have the choice between a mobile and an open and closed machine, it's a question of price, but it's also a question of footprint in the plant. So whatever the product mix, it's always a compromise between the investment, the performance, and we can find a solution for each of the points, but it's up to the converter to make its choice.
So David, I think we're leading into a session here on graphics as well, because I think even though it might be high volume case making, there's obviously still the opportunity to still print the box nicely. Give us a little bit of background as to obviously within your group of companies, you have the expertise of very, very high quality post-print standalone offline machines. Have you started to see that technology creeping across into the inline process? So in terms of seeing that improvement in print quality?
I'm not sure I'm getting your question then. I'm sorry.
Okay, so I'm sorry. We're just really saying that the experience within the Bobst Group that you have from your offline machines. Are you starting to see that that you're able to now move some of that technology across into the inline process? Because obviously, even though a standard box is a standard box, I mean, people are now starting to want more and more color on their packaging, aren't they?
Yeah, you're completely right. Today, we don't do any difference between the high graphics quality we can reach on the offline post-print flexo compared to an inline post-print flexo. That means it can be a case maker, it can be a rotary die cutter, it can be an offline flexo printer. We really guarantee the same quality, okay? But still, we need all these different segments because the process are different and they are not making the same boxes, just as simple as that. So if it's an American box with high graphics, we can do it in one pass, and it's really a trend on the market, pushed a lot by Europe, but also with other continents. To transfer the offline processes, I print, I cut, I fold. So this is more complex processes with more machines, more people, and so on, to one single process, which is an inline process. And this is right that today the expectation of the brand owners is the same, whatever is the process. They don't care about the process. They just give the specifications on the box, and the converters make the box with the most efficient way he is able to do. And this is, I agree with you, the number of colors we sell on the market and we see on the new machines is increasing a lot, and a big trend. Even if it's not 100% of the product mix that is produced on the machine.
Giovanni, Giovanni, I'd like to come to you now, please, because I know that your particular case-maker line has been installed all over the world, in all the different markets. How much is the automation and the sort of computer systems, how important are those now when you think that in some territories where you're installing skill sets, they're not going to be particularly high compared to Japan or in Europe or North America. So what are you doing in terms of developing the technology to allow for that high volume output when you still haven't got necessarily the skill set within the operators?
Yeah, that is a very important question and point, because as you say, we are installing machines not just in Europe or in Japan or United States, but also in other continents like Africa or Southeast Asia, etc. So we need, of course, to make the machine very important to focus a lot on the automatism of the machine, to make it automatic. But we have to make machines which are simpler. It's very simple to be used by the operator. So our target is to make simpler and simpler machines to be used by the operators. Then inside we can have automatism to make it automatic, the ink change, the feeding, and many other points to make it automatic. But the machine must be simple for the operators to be used. So the machine must be user-friendly, and then for the full line. So the operators can do very, very little to use the machine, because also, as my colleague said, you find very little skilled operators, not just in Africa, but also in Europe, because very few people want to work in the corrugated board business, in a corrugator or in a case maker. So you have a lot of rotation of people going into the machine, and you cannot train all these operators every time. So the machine must be very simple to be used. Of course, it must be with the software, with automatism, must be very, very simple and user-friendly. So that is for both operation and also maintenance, because also maintenance is very important. So the focus is to make simple machine for the operators and for the maintenance people.
Mm-hmm. Paul, let's come to you now, and specifically, we're looking at the North American market here. When you're working with your customers for choosing a particular case making line, something Giovanni was talking about there was preventative maintenance. How are you addressing that with your customers? Because obviously, as we move into Industry 4.0 and the Internet of Things, connectivity is really important, correct?
Absolutely, and it's accessing the data that the machine is giving you. There is, and I'm sure all my colleagues' equipment has these features now. And if they don't, talk to the OEM, talk to the machine supplier. But accessing the information, finding out a fault on the machine, going deeper into the program as to whether the operator can take care of it or the maintenance person, the machine will tell you what the problem is. And that's what we're finding out a lot of, because I always say that the maintenance guy walking around with the 5-pound mallet to move a slaughter head is not what we want anymore. We need the person to find out the machine has an issue. It's telling you it has an issue, and now the machine can actually tell you what that issue is and how to fix it. So it just needs a little human intervention to make it happen, and that's what we're seeing on the equipment nowadays. And it's not just in the U.S.; it's all over. The industry is not a glamorous industry, if you will, and we have seen that in the 35 years that I've been involved in it. But it is a progressive industry. It is moving forward. What we're doing here with IIoT, with analyzing data of the machines we have installed, getting the machine intelligence, getting the anomalies verified, and getting that machine learning is also helping, and not only in the preventive maintenance end of things, but also reducing some of that preventive maintenance and actually lowering the cost of the total cost of ownership of that machine.
Okay, so I think what I'd like to do now here is move the conversation, possibly a little bit of a difficult question to answer, but I'd like all of you to have a go at answering this. But Enrico, I'm going to come to you first, and then I'm going to move to Rob. Enrico, if I said to you, what does the next 5 to 10 years look like in terms of equipment and the whole process of high-speed case making? What do you think the future holds? Do we think there's going to be hybrid combinations with digital marking systems, etc.?
Well, I'm a strong believer of hybrids. It is more than 10 years. Digital printers suppliers are telling us they are going to kill us in the next year. And Flex is still there, and more or less, of course, they are getting better and better. But the pure digital is another industry, is more competing with the offset printing, is more in the advertising sector and so on. So they keep showing us multicolor things which are covering a really tiny segment of the boxes you may produce on a case maker. What we see in the reality as a demand is start growing for case maker is the capability of variable data. People producing boxes that are gonna be stored in automatic storages and has to be individually tracked, maybe for food industry or other sector, pharmaceutical and so on, where you need to data track precisely which any component has been stored, delivered, and so on. So each box must be individually identified. So we see it's not huge at the moment, but we see a growing demand of integration between Flexo and small digital, fast digital, one color, two color maximum. So I really think in the next near future, this will be one trend for sure.
Okay, good. Thank you, Enrico. Rob, let's come to you. I mean, if you had the wish list or you were able to gaze into your crystal ball, what do you think is going to be coming over the next 5 to 10 years?
I think I would, quite honestly, I would echo what's just been said. I think we've all sort of dreamed of a digital case maker, but I think the reality is slightly different to the dream, as is often the case. I think Flexo is just, it's a winner because it's so well proven. It is very well known and understood, and basically it's very cost effective. As soon as you start introducing digital, I mean, we've seen it with the offline machines. It's taken quite a number of years to develop it to the point where it is now, where it's accessible to people. I think this probably the slight concern I would have with digital printing on case makers is you can't get the depth of colour that you can with a Flexo. So I think the track and traceability about just IDing a box, that's a sensible approach, and therefore a hybrid seems to be a sensible solution. I'm not sure if or when we will get to the entire digital case making line, but the advantages of being able to introduce digital print are clear for everybody to see. You don't have to worry about stereos. You don't have to wash down. It's and quick to set up. So yeah, I think if we all move that way, that's probably a sensible step.
Good. Okay, Giovanni, your particular company has always looked at trying to keep its technology on the front end, and just some of your recent developments, developing a standalone or your own pre-feeder to match speed. But I mean, where do you feel that the future's going for case making?
Okay, that is in the next 5-10 years. I agree with what Enrico said. That is also about digital printing and the hybrid. That people from digital printing, as I say, they wanted to kill us, but they didn't succeed already in the 10 years. So I don't see at the moment that they will replace Flexo printing the next 5 to 10 years. Also, because with the COVID situation, we have learned that the e-commerce is taking more and more place, and people are buying more and more on the internet. And as I think David said earlier at the beginning of this conversation, e-commerce they don't need high graphic printing. They don't need probably just one color. But for one box, that has to be well made, etc. But they need the trackability of this box. The box has to be traced and then eventually sent back. And this is something that can be useful to have high-speed case makers, because you need to produce high volumes for this e-commerce, but also to be able to track each box and where each box is going. And for instance, a box that can be sent to a customer, to your house, but then you have to send it back, so the box can be tracked and they immediately from a barcode they know who was to which person was delivered, what was inside that box. So I think this is a kind of future that I see in the case making, the high-speed case makers.
Okay, good.
Of course, we are working on this kind of situation.
Yeah. Okay, and I think Paul, we'll come to you now. I mean, have you got any little nuggets for us as to where you think case making is going to take the next step?
I agree with Giovanni. I see it more as a security serialized number. In the near term, I don't see it as a full color option. replacing Flexo in general in the next 5 or 10 years. But I do see it creeping in. I think the main thing they have to look at, and we were looking at digital for a long time, is the reliability and uptime of the digital printer. And when you have a full cell costing millions and millions of dollars in euro, and you need to maintain a digital printer a little bit more than you do an ink chamber, then that's going to create some issues. So I don't see it quickly. Yeah, it's going to happen eventually, but I don't think in the next 5 to 7 years. But I do see security being a big thing. I see serialization, coding, trackability of the boxes. That I can see happening very quickly.
Well, thank you, Paul. David, I don't know whether there's anything to add there, because effectively we've got 4 gentlemen who are all saying pretty much the same thing. But I mean, I'll ask the question anyway. I mean, what do you feel is the future for case making?
I fully agree on the digital side. Digital printing will be complementary to flexo printing. It will not replace it for sure. It will be a long journey for us. We need to understand that this technology is quite new, specifically for post-print flexo, but the technology will evolve in terms of quality, in terms of speed, and in terms of all these parameters we know that are limiting today's penetration of the technology. And one of the key points will be the total cost of ownership because of the price of the inks. So once we will have reliable solutions, even for serialization, and once the ink price will decrease, it will push the technology for sure, but still complementary to flexo. An additional point, perhaps, and not only for case maker, but for the future, we will see more and more some inside printing, and this is something that is coming on the market. We know there are some solutions already, and for the premium experience and the wow effect, specifically on the e-commerce, for sure this kind of solution will need to be more developed on the market, and the market is asking for it. So this is one of the evolution I see for the coming years.
Good. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much indeed. It's been a fascinating 40 minutes chatting to you all about where the future for high-speed case making is going. So Rob, Paul, David, Giovanni, Enrico, thank you so much indeed for your time. I know that the people who are listening to this webinar broadcast, I'm sure will be making their way over to your booths in the Connection Virtual Expo. So at that stage, we will say thank you to you all, and we will look forward to catching up with you all very soon. Thank you very much indeed.